Oh,
Scared the heck out of the rattlesnake.
well, you know, old King, you'd go down to get the cows, and you'd walk up behind the king, and you kick him in the ribs, and he'd reach out and bite them cows. And then Donald, he had such long legs that he put the stirrups almost to the ground. So when Daddy'd go down to water, instead of Daddy changing the stirrups, he'd push his boots down and put the boots in the stirrups. It looked like his legs was about 10 feet long.
Yeah, I have to tell you about old King. You remember Wiki up north?
Oh yeah.
As we go up to the cows would go up that road.
Yeah.
And they got water and feed sometimes up there. And I rode up there, and old King was spooky. And I wondered why he was spooky. And you know, a little bear stood up on his hind feet and looked at me.
Oh,
and I thought, I'm going to get out of here. My whole mother's not here.
He's like I did up in Yellowstone. I put down and I says, I dove in here when I saw the bear behind. That's what he done. Yeah, we could write a book about that. We just had so many good experiences, you know. Told me that he went, about 3 years ago, he went down to California and he went to see Paul. And him and Paul talked, and they didn't know it, but I guess Laren recorded it all.
Oh.
And he says Paul remembered every name of the horse that we had on that place. And he told about the horses. And Laren's going to get me a copy of it. If you ever do, I'll bring one up, because that would be so neat.
Well, I talked to him once on the phone. He thought that I was you.
Oh, is that right?
You
Oh,
remember
Paul,
when
huh?
you give
Oh,
her-
yeah.
And he said, Don, he said, I remember all our horses.
Yeah.
And he named them.
He did. But he felt bad, because Donald got one really good horse out of all the ones he had and traded. Remember Little King? You got that Little King, and then the other horse was a little taller.
Wally.
But that little King was just a small, kind of a sorrel horse. Oh, we
Little
loved
bay
that.
horse.
Oh, that was the best little horse in the whole
Yeah,
world.
he was.
Paul loved it, and then Paul went to service, and then Vito Henniger's daughter, she'd married, I forget, Walker up there. She wanted a horse so bad, and Daddy had 2 or 3 of them,
You know,
and she talked Daddy out of that horse.
you know Paul couldn't ride, or Melvin couldn't ride him.
Yeah.
Because he done something to him and the horse didn't like him. And he trail walked.
Yeah.
He go part way up the road,
Yeah.
trail walk.
Yeah.
Dad says, now you don't let him do that. And I said, how do you do it, Dad? He said, take a rope and wet it a little bit and have it so when he does that, wrap him around the belly with it a couple times.
Yeah.
And he said, you can go to church with it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. But Old King, Old King lasted longer than any horse we ever had. And you know, we never did get fat, but we'd run him on the court and everything. I was coming out of the canyon and Virgil and I was racing. And I had 4 cans of milk in that. And as I come around Wiki up to go down toward where the sawmill was, I hit a rock and all the milk went to the back of the court. And Old King went up in the air like this. And then I finally got the milk back up to where the court. And when he come down, we lit on his side, took all the hair off his side.
Oh my God.
And Paul was riding along the side of me on a horse. And Paul jumped up, and we always had a pocket knife, and he had to hurry and cut the wrist strap so we could get him up. But you know, by golly, he got up and took the milk on home. He was a tough bugger.
Boy.
Daddy lost him up hunting. And Daddy come home and Daddy had tears in his eyes. He felt so bad. But you know, about a week later, we looked up the road and here come King. He had the saddle underneath his belly. He had all gashes. He must have come over cliffs and everything.
Oh my head.
He had cuts and bruises, but he come home after all that. After all that.
Wow.
Oh my
He
head.
was some horse. Oh,
Yeah.
So on the way home, Donald Stetton visited with his friends, and I come down the road, and I got just about the house, and Dee looked out, and she seen that blood on my hands, and she started screaming and yelling, and they was living in that front room, you know. And Mother come running in. What's the matter? Are you all right with me? That little son of a gun took Donald up the canyon and killed him, and he's coming home alone. Mother just, and then Mother laughed, and that didn't help her. Because Mother, big Donald.
Gave her a
Oh.
heart attack. But your mother didn't get upset. She was laughing about
She
it.
knew.
Right? She knew it was chickens.
Oh, man.
That's funny.
We had a lot of good times, but I got, you know, after we had the Olsen reunion over there, and I got the house over there, Donald and Dean and Paul would all come up to the reunion. So they'd all stay out in that little trailer house. And they'd just laugh and holler and tell jokes, and they'd just laugh. So the one day, Dean drank coffee. One day, and Donald then wanted cocoa. So Paul had his hands all full, and so Donald then was still in bed. So Dean come in and got the cocoa and the coffee, and he had it all in his hands like that. I went out and put that. I had an imitation skunk
Oh,
that
yeah.
I put down. I put right by the door. Paul went to look to holler them to open the door. He seen that skunk. Roman and I was watching out the window. We just laughed our head off.
You know what, Dean? I have to laugh at Dean. You know, he used to talk about what we did when I herded sheep for Ham Linford,
Yeah,
clear over on Snake River,
yeah,
and old Bert Steed was a herding,
yeah.
and I had to cook cabbage for him, and I said I had 7 pack horses, and I had everything I needed, you know, the tent and the whole.
You bet.
And Dean said, I don't know, Don gets carried away. He said he could carry 7 pack horses.
Oh, God. Oh, 7. I wish you got a picture of them.
But he meant pack,
Oh, Pat.
carry 'em.
Oh, is that? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, gee. Oh,
And he told people, he said, I can't believe Don,
oh.
he couldn't carry 7.
Well, you was young back then.
Yeah,
You know, Daddy herded sheep up there, and boy, he could cook a Dutch oven, and that was good life anyway, herding them sheep. You know, you had deer meat and chickens and everything. You know, that was a good life. And he even had a cafe over in Star Valley. Do you
Yeah, he
remember
was
that?
telling the nurses he had a cafe.
Yeah, he run the cafe over there for a while over in Afton over there.
I heard a chick for in Grazer for Ray Crook too, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I did quite a bit of herding.
I loved it. That year that Daddy and I went up there and herded, I was 16 years old. That was the best summer I ever spent in my life. And you know what? I was supposed to be the camp jack, and Daddy was supposed to be the herder. But I was so young that I slept in late, and Daddy took care of everything, you know. And when we got done at the end of the year, this Frank Hill, he was it was 7 different people owned sheep down in the valley. So they all put it in the community herd. But Frank was kind of over it. He had 4 girls that could ride horses like you wouldn't believe. And I heard the chief stayed up there all summer and never come home. So when we come home, a 16-year-old, he come up and he says, Clyde, he says, when you get ready, he said, I got 4 or 5 girls up there, and you just come up and you get your choice. And I said, you know, they might have something to say about that, Frank. I said, well, but Frank was so good with it. But when I got, Daddy, he went to write out the check. My dad says, started writing the check out. Dad says, you write 2 checks out. And he says, whatever we got coming this summer, you split it right down the middle. And he says, half of it goes to my boy, and I take the other half. I couldn't believe that. You know that? But you know, I went and cashed it on a check, and I think it was around $700 or $800.
Wow.
And I went over, went with Oma all summer. I went over and got her, and I went in to the show house. And when I got home that night, I couldn't find my billfold. I went back over where I took Roman, and I looked all over in the corner, and I looked all over everywhere. So early the next morning, I went over, and they had a couple that took care of the show house, you know, to sweep it.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked if they saw anything when they swept it up. And they said, no, we cleaned the whole thing, and we never saw any person. I was just sick. And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
all cash. And I said, well, I know it's here. And I said, Owen Miles is this guy down here. I might have to bring him over and see if we can't look around over here and see if we can't find it. I said, I'll come back in a while and check. I come back in a little while, and he said, oh, we was going through the trash as we went to throw it in the furnace, and we found it.
It's a good thing you told me.
Oh, what a relief. Oh, I won't.
Thank
Oh,
heavens.
son of a
My
word.